Hello, welcome to another episode of Cotton, and today my guest is Babloo Loitongbam. And Bablu is a prominent human rights activist, lawyer, anthropologist from Manipur. He serves as the executive director of Human Rights Alert, a Manipur-based NGO that monitors, investigates, and reports human rights violation. He has worked in this field for more than 3 decades. After studying anthropology in Delhi University, he became involved in student activism and human rights work in the late 1980s and early 1990s, following personal experiences of discrimination. He founded and has led HRA since then. He is an Ashoka Fellow elected in 2000 and later named a Life Fellow for his efforts to build local human rights capacity and connect it with international networks. He is also a Fulbright scholar and has engaged in peace building and academic work, including a 2025 residency at Heidelberg University's South Asia Institute, where he is working on a book on Manipur. You are working on a book on Manipur,
yes.
No? Mm-hmm. That is why recently also you were there, is it?
Indeed.
Yeah. In short, he is a long-standing non-violent human rights defender dedicated to accountability, justice for victims of state and other forms of violence, and the promotion of peaceful coexistence in conflict-affected Manipur. 2 things here are very important. One is that justice for victims of state and other forms of violence. That's equally important. It's not only the state violence, any kinds of violence, sexual, that's very, very important. So I'm really very happy to interview you, and somehow it coincided with our discussion yesterday. So I welcome you to this discussion.
Thank you, sir.
And my first question is, how do you assess the current human rights situation in Northeast India? How does it compare with the broader situation in India and internationally? So this is the first question, the human rights situation in our Northeast, and then at the national level and international level.
Sir. Well, thank you so much for inviting me for our very vibrant discussions yesterday, and also for this interview where we are having a much more intimate conversation. Coming from Manipur, we can't miss the fact that Manipur is in a very deep crisis. There are several communities fighting each other, and we are seeing about 60,000 plus people being displaced from their homes. It's more than 3 years now that this conflict has been brewing. There is separation of communities in different locations. The highways are not operating properly. Specific ethnic identities become a problem to enter into specific areas. So the situation in Manipur definitely is in a very, very serious crisis, and the fact that this has continued for 3 years, and by the days and the weeks and the months and the years now, it's getting more and more complicated. Earlier it was between Kuki and Meitei, and then now the Nagas are also involved. So there are 3 communities at loggerheads. The involvement of state agencies and their operatives and vigilante groups have really complicated the whole matter. We are not seeing a very quick resolution of it. So it's definitely a matter of very serious concern. The casualties in terms of human cost have crossed 200 now. But nobody is keeping a very clear count. Definitely, it has swung much higher. The level of brutality of the violence in terms of not only killing people but cutting them into pieces.
Unspeakable.
Unspeakable level of atrocities that we are seeing. It's difficult to imagine such a beautiful place like Manipur can go through such horrendous experience. Well, coming broadly to northeast India as a whole, I mean in Assam we are seeing what is happening, the closing of civil society space, the NRC and large-scale statelessness of people, the overall environment if you look at other states like in Mizoram, we are seeing a large-scale influx of population from across the border. So I think situation is not very good for the Northeast. We have this experience of long-term, very highly militarized security architecture where democratic rights of people are being kind of bargained away in the name of national security. But what is national security if human security is not taken care of? Genuine national security has to emanate from protecting the people. I mean, I think our belief is that as human rights activists, we believe that a true national security has to emanate from human security of the citizens. When the citizen feels secured, the nation feels secured. So if there is a way in which you formulate national security where you justify trampling of security of individual human being, then in the long run, there will be neither human security nor national security. Unfortunately, Northeast have always been seen as a frontier region where exceptional laws like the Armed Forces Special Powers Act is justified to be there. Exceptional kind of laws like the restricted area permit is always justified in the name of national security. But in the long run, if you institutionalize this kind of security architecture where you undermine human security, then neither will human security be secured nor will national security be secured. If laws like APSFA or restricted area permits are the solution, then the Northeast problems would have been solved long time ago. But in the long run, this becomes counterproductive. So genuine democratic growth in their own genius of the people is halted, and therefore we are seeing a very, very big crisis. Looking at the broader picture of India, I mean, many observers internationally are gradually downgrading India.
Or quality of democracy.
Absolutely, absolutely. From democracy, now they were calling it competitive, authoritarianism. From now,
or elected
autocracy.
Autocracy.
Now. Many people are more comfortable calling it elected autocracy because the credibility of institutions like the Supreme Court, which was like the bastion, the last resort for kind of seeking justice, has now been very seriously questioned. Is there genuinely an independent judiciary in India is very seriously questioned. And the very foundational institutions like the Election Commission is now being seriously questioned. So whether are we living in a democracy or already an autocrat, which is, at least it has the facet of democracy, which still have institutions like
these are the procedures are there,
exactly,
but then the lacking any quality in them.
Indeed.
Proper functioning.
I like the way Arundhati Roy defined it, that these are cells.
Yes.
So the cover is still there, but the content inside is already dead.
Is rotten.
It's no longer there. So we still have institutions, but the independence of these institutions, the strength for them to stand up against the autocratic rule or the executive power we are seeing a gradual kind of democracy deficit in the last few decades. So it is a matter of concern. But probably it's also true that this kind of authoritarian, majoritarian forces are taking over many democratic countries. I mean, look at US, for example. This is also a very serious and concerning trend that many countries in Europe are also falling into this right-wing, majoritarian, ethno-nationalist mobilization. And so we are passing through a difficult phase in terms, if we trace democracy and its trajectory, I think we are in a very challenging situation today. The question is, how do we turn this a crisis into an opportunity. This is also an opportunity, in fact, for us to build solidarity across within the region, across the region, and also internationally. This
international point. Another thing, I just wanted to bring it to your notice. Now we have also witnessed what is happening in Gaza.
Exactly. Yeah.
How the human rights, basic human rights, are violated.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in a way, human rights principles which has emerged in the post-Second World War has emerged because of the very severe experience that the Jews have gone through in the Second World War. Now, the whole Jews community is now doing exactly the same against the Palestinians and the Arabs, which is a repetition of history. And therefore, all these principles and standards that has been developed in the last 70 years is going down the drain. And the so-called guardians of this democratic and human rights value of the West is now seriously compromised in the Gaza experience.
Absolutely.
In a way, there's a slight difference between how US is responding and the European countries are responding. However, there's a general kind of degradation, which is very, very concerning. So what has been built in the last 70 years, this is very seriously challenged.
We have not been able to sustain and actually qualitatively develop it.
Absolutely.
Now, one thing you mentioned, one very important thing, so far this Northeast region is concerned, that in the name of national security, so they have brought in, you see, many laws, many acts. But the thing is that if the people living in the region, they don't feel secure, if they don't have human rights, now what is the meaning of this national security?
Exactly.
What do we understand? How do we define national security? If you keep the population in the entire region under suppression, or if you curtail their rights?
Exactly. Who defines what is national security is the critical question. If it is still the majoritarian voice that define national security by excluding and marginalizing the people in this, who are actually living in these sensitive border areas, then it is not a very sustainable way of defining it. And therefore, very often you put national security as the reason for trampling the right. This is exactly what we are seeing. If you want genuine security, it has to start with the people's security. I mean, I can give you a very concrete example. For example, in Manipur, we have experienced these fake encounters. People are getting killed all the time in the name of counterinsurgency operation. So what we have done is we were able to organize thousands of these families whose loved ones were executed in the name of APSPA and under the whole impunity that is provided by, under the Sedo of APSPA. So when we start organizing them and finally went to the Supreme Court in a monumental case by documenting 1,528 cases of these victims of extrajudicial execution. Many politicians were telling us that if you do this and if you curtail the security forces, then you are giving a free hand to the insurgent groups, and therefore there will be chaos. But the exact opposite happened. What was interesting is once the Supreme Court take charge of it, look into the matter, look into the merit of it, and put that, we had a fantastic historic judgment by Justice Lukur saying that even if there is APSPA, you cannot trample the rights of the people, and therefore every case there should be criminal investigation to find out whether it is right or wrong, whether this claim by the family is actually sustainable under the scrutiny of the CBI. So you are still putting the state machinery to look at it, but the very fact that they had started looking at 39 cases and started filing, charge sheets against those security forces involved, instead of insurgents taking over, what was interesting is when Supreme Court came down and said, you cannot just kill people randomly or arbitrarily or on just mere suspicion, the violence of the state retreats and the violence of the non-state also retreat. So we filed this case in 2012, and by 2013 the Supreme Court has got this report, and by 2014 from 500 killings that we report every year, it went to 0.
See, now when the institution is actually
protecting people,
the Supreme Court here, actually they're functioning as they should be functioning.
Exactly. And violence is such a cyclic process. If the state becomes very violent, then the opposition also becomes very violent.
Yes.
It's like a situation where you have a cat in the corner.
Yeah.
So if you try to hit the cat in the corner, then the cat will fight irrespective of how strong the person behind is. But if you sit calmly in the room, the cat also does his work and you stop fighting.
Yeah.
So I think in a way, insurgency in the Northeast or the violence in the Northeast have also to be understood. If the state calms down, if the state listens, if the state protects the individual, then the people feel protected for the first time by the Supreme Court. Violence from the other side also reduces.
They're bound to reduce.
Yeah, bound to reduce.
Bound to reduce.
Yeah. So this theory that you have to use a lot of force, you have to undermine rule of law, you have to trample on the rights of the people for national security is, I think, a very hollow argument. It sounds convincing in the first move because it's macho, masculinity, expression of power. But in the long run, security doesn't come only by manifestation of power.
Never.
Genuine security comes when you feel protected, when the state takes up that responsibility to protect your own citizen.
Yes.
Then at the moment in Manipur, the state is abdicating that responsibility to protect. So every community is arming themselves to protect themselves. You have village guards among the Nagas, you have village guards among the Kukis, you have village guards among the Meitei, and at the end of it, what happens is a total chaos.
Chaos. And then actually the terror is
experienced by every individual.
Experienced by everyone.
Yeah.
It's a regime of terror everywhere.
Exactly.
The public space is actually completely enveloped in terror.
Indeed.
Yes.
And the state is abdicating its most primary responsibility to protect your own citizens.
See?
And that is the danger.
The state is almost withdrawing.
Exactly.
That's very pathetic, actually. That's very pathetic. And now, and you have so nicely explained the role when one single actually verdict of this Supreme Court can bring in so much peace and, you see, comforting relief to the people. Mm-hmm. And if these institutions, they function properly, then actually the people can live in a peaceful atmosphere with cordial relationship.
Absolutely. I mean, and the democracy requires that these institutions become strong and perform its responsibility effectively.
Yes.
It's not just election 5 years, but genuine democracy has to come on a day-to-day basis of how people experience it. Rule of law, protection of rights are very, very critical to me.
So what do you think now, because you have brought in this issue, before I go to the next question, now what do you think about the Election Commission as a pillar of democracy, as an independent institution? How do you see it now? How is it performing its responsibilities and duties?
Well, the less said, the better. but if you see the kind of stories that is coming out from the last Bihar and Bengal elections, and the whole thing that is coming out about this SIR, and the possibility of this new initiatives from the government on delimitation issue, possibility of making large number of people stateless. I think we are going through a very, very painful situation in the democratic history of India, and certainly institutions like the election commissions are not standing up to the call of the moment. Everybody, well-informed people close to the system and who analyze it, are all saying that there is a substantial compromise.
It is compromise. It is actually in a way we can say it has failed. Its responsibilities and duties.
Right. But I am no one sitting in Manipur engulfed in this conflict to understand exactly what is the dynamics there. But if you see the media and at least the writings in the wall, we are in for a big trouble.
Good. So now coming to my next question, and this is a question actually yesterday also we discussed this thing. So yesterday we both attended a consultation on census announced by the Government of India, and many participants emphasized the need for a civil society forum for Northeast India that could address issues of common interest. My question is, why has such a forum not emerged even after more than 70 years of India's independence? There was a time when we were all almost one unit.
Right.
And now, why there is no viable alternative civil society forum which can attend to the problems of the entire Northeast? Why has it not emerged?
I mean, as we have deliberated yesterday, it is quite clear the need for it is felt by everyone, that there are certain experiences in the Northeast which is not found in Karnataka or in Kerala or in Rajasthan. I mean, starting from the militarization, the history of dispossession and occupation, history of this very long suspension of democratic rights of the people, extraordinary laws, the security architecture that is imposed on us, and also the pre-colonial experience of this region is very, very different from both the colonial as well as pre-colonial experience from the rest of India. And therefore, there is a need for a platform for people to come together, to reflect together, and to take up common issues and agenda. But however, the problem is we are all very uncomfortable with this very integrationist approach of trying to pull us into a national mainstream, which many of us feel a little alien to us. But in response to that, the way our leaders have also formulated to fight this overarching kind of a mainstreaming assimilative politics is also to develop our own specific ethno-nationalist narratives and build ethno-nationalist identities and movements, and sometimes going to the extreme militancy, sometimes more within the constitutional framework. But many of our politics are built around identity, ethnic identity. However, there is a fundamental problem. I mean, it is ethnic identity movements are very good in terms of mobilizing sentiments and mobilizing people as an opposing force. But when it comes to institution building around identity, that becomes very problematic.
Yes, we have seen that.
We have seen that. I mean, just because you have a particular way of weaving a shawl, you have a certain right, and your neighbor doesn't have the same way of weaving the shawl, and therefore they are not entitled to the right, is very, very problematic in terms of democratic values and equity. And therefore, I think the basic challenge also for the civil society is that we are not able to build civil society based on values. We have been trying to build an opposition to this integrationist approach on identity, ethnic identity, and there are serious limitations to it. So I think one has to try to find civil society which are value-based, based on democratic principles, based on inclusivity, based on human rights, fundamental freedom. If we can build movements and civil society platforms around values and not so much on identity, then because of our common historical experience and to a large extent our common destiny, we have to find ways of kind of relating to one another. In a way, for example, Nagas have been able to build from small tribals community to a pan-Naga identity. The Mizos have also tried similar experience in the 60s. Now Chin Kuki Mizo identity is a reality. So people try to weave around identity questions. But then there are serious problems, the same trap in which we are seeing this Hindutva politics getting trapped in an identity politics. Even in the micro level, these identity mobilization have limitations. So what I think we need to do, perhaps the need of the hour, is for us to build movements and forums which are based on values and an understanding the common good of coming together and the need for a common identity, kind of a destiny. Whether you like it or not, your neighbors are your neighbors. You cannot change them. You are given. So a much more reasonable outlook based on shared common values, which are more or less universal in that sense,
yes,
is, I think, what was lacking. And that's why you build a common platform on identity. It becomes very instrumental relationship. It's not an organic relationship, and therefore under pressure you break up. So I think we need to deepen this relationship building, and we need to weave in all these identities and now develop civil society groups understanding the common destiny and based on fundamental universal principles of human rights, democracy, inclusivity.
Great, you have said it so beautifully, really, because we have done enough of our identities, identity politics. Now maybe we come around with value-based things. You see,
absolutely,
the democratic principles, the constitutional values, the universal human rights. So if we think in terms of those values, maybe it will be easier for us to organize ourselves, and if we rally behind those values.
Right.
Very well said, and I think in the future we'll have to maybe work on that. Now, the third question is actually, you have already somewhere answered this question, because this question was, the Northeast India is not a homogeneous region, yet it is bound together by a shared ecological systems. Do you believe it is possible to develop common vision for the Northeast grounded on this shared ecological inheritance? Now here, you have explained it to an extent, but now, little more elaboration is because, okay, we have our separate political identities, but we belong to a same ecological systems.
Right.
So that we cannot deny.
Absolutely.
So when we talk in terms of building a vision for and you have already said destiny, so maybe that could also, we should take that into account.
Absolutely. No, I really like the idea of that you bring in ecology and the common ecology into this civil society discourse, because at the end of the day, I think these are very, very closely and intimately connected, because many of us identify ourselves as indigenous communities, and the way our relationship with nature is extremely important. And if you look at nowadays, it's very easy to look at the Google map. If you look at the physical Google map of the Northeast, it's basically this the Himalayas becoming little lower as it comes towards the east, and then taking this southward turn to this Patkai range, and then dipping into the Bay of Bengal before it emerged into this Andaman Nicobar Island. So in a way, we inhabited this area, and there are of course rivers that's coming in, alluvial river valleys that are being formed, and around those river valleys, small communities have come down, descended perhaps from the mountains, and have lived as a crossroad between South and Southeast Asia, between the great Indic civilization and the Cynic civilization, where all these things are intermingled. And that was how our identities and groups were being formed over millennia, if not centuries. Yes. I mean, centuries and millennia. And so we have a Ahomya kingdom coming in the Brahmaputra Valley. In the Barak the Valley, there was this Kachar kingdom, and in the Imphal Valley, which again ties up with the Irrawaddy, we have the Meitei kingdom, then the Manipur kingdom, which eventually had this. When the British came, this was how they found. And so there are the groups who are adapted to the more mountainous forest kind of ecosystem, and groups who are more adapted to the wetland ecosystem in the valley where they have developed. So that's how interesting kind of things have emerged, kingdoms have emerged in the valley, and to a large extent people in the hills remain more or less in the same kind of a state, what anthropologists would call the Jumia people. You know, for many people, they see the continuum from the lower Himalayas down up to Cambodia, Laos as a cultural continuum. Well, there are critics of it as well, but also this was how, and then with the Burmese coming and taking over certain parts of Ahom and Manipur in the second half of the 18th century, the coming in of the British and we experiencing the Pax Britannica in a way, and then they receding power after the Second World War, and how we became a part of Indian kind of a newly established Indian Republic. It's a journey that we have traversed through the ages, and in a way, this common past one has to recognize, and we have to realize that the world is changing fundamentally. This 400 years of Western domination is getting over. The new Asian century is coming. And how do we as a Northeast, as a region, the ecological region of Northeast, also navigate into this uncharted path is the critical question. The whole, the intrusion of state, the intrusion of the corporate to extract the resources that we have is unprecedented. On the one hand, we see how great the new Assam airport is. We were all admiring. This is the first time I'm flying into it. But at the same time, you see the potholes in the
roads. There were no actually waterlogging in this city 30 years ago. But now there's little rain and it's all flooded.
So this is an interesting contrast that you are seeing. On the one hand, we are like any other developed world, part of any developed world, so long as it serves the interest.
So far the appearance is concerned.
Indeed,
so far the appearance is concerned.
But the reality of many people is still living in that medieval world. So Northeast is going to experience this have and the have-not is going to be very stark. Large populations are going to be marginalized out of this new neoliberal onslaught. Some will benefit beyond their imagination, of course.
But the majority
is going to so. So I think it is important for us to be able to articulate the right of this marginalized
and that is why I think this Northeast
common platform
common destiny is very important.
Absolutely.
Now time is running out. I have my last question, and it is, I think, is a difficult question. So the way you would like to answer it, respond to it, it's up to you. Now, what is going to happen so far the Manipur crisis is concerned?
Well, it is very deeply personal.
I know once the kind of situation you faced, so that is why a little careful.
Sure. I mean, what you are seeing in Manipur today is that every community is talking about their rights. But they are doing this in a way, you are angry and outraged by the injustice that your people, your community has suffered. But this anger and the empathy of the suffering of your people there is a tendency, at least at the predominant narrative, to demonize your neighbor to justify why you are suffering. You're suffering. And in this thought process, you are constantly creating warriors of your community ready to fight the other. This is fundamentally the problem. See, if we can flip this, and if we can start showing empathy not only to the suffering of your own people, but also to the suffering of your neighboring people, and then try to see what is the way out. I think you start empathizing with not only your community, but also the community of the others, your neighboring community, and try to find a way out. That is the way we have to find a solution, and genuine peace building has to emerge out of it. To do that, I think what is also very important is there is a lot of narratives which are half cooked. Some of them have some evidence here, some evidence there, and you take it as the gospel truth and start spewing them to each other. I think the first casualty is the truth. So I think it is important for us to disseminate what is hype and what is truth, to understand each other, and to realize what we have just talked about, the larger Northeast context. Manipur also is a very small state, and we have to understand that we are tied with common destiny. You can choose your spouse, but you cannot choose your neighbor.
Yes,
you are there for thousands of years. You are going to be there for another 1,000 years. So one has to find ways of solving and living in a good neighborlyhood with your community. There are certain issues which are coming up which are in a way sustaining this, drug economy being one. There is also this story about illegal immigration. How much of it is real? How much of it is a hype? I think we also need a proper objective understanding of this. I mean, if there is demographic engineering, that has to be checked. But how much it is a real thing. If you speak to one community, they said it is as real as day and night. If you speak to another community, they said these are all hyped up statistics. Now, what is the truth? It is the role of the state to come out with a clear white paper on these issues. Unfortunately, the state is very happy seeing these people fight
conflict going on
and on. I mean, the Truth Finding Commission, which was set up when Amit Saha came to Manipur in June 1st, 2023, is yet to submit its report till date. When he was there, as a first response, he also set up a peace building commission constituting 52 members. It has not had its first sitting till date.
They didn't have the first sitting?
No, they have not had a first sitting. I mean, fact-finding commission was supposed to submit its report within 6 months. Now it's already 3 years. I mean,
no report.
No report.
Nothing of that sort.
This is clear abdication of the state's responsibility to protect its population. So I think that needs to be fixed, and the dismal failure of governance have to be understood. And see, in a normal conflict situation, you have this in the international standard is DDR. If you want to develop a kind of build a peace, disarmament, kind of dismantling of the military structure, and reintegration of these people. If you look at the peace approaches in Northeast, or particularly in Manipur, there is always this ceasefire and suspension of operation arrangement, where you neither disarm these groups that you are in a peace process, nor the command structure, nor are they integrated into the mainstream or civilian life. So all this kind of militarized structures exist, and out of ethnic formation, and you are pitting one against the other, and therefore with the slightest kind of ignition, it is bursting because the conditions are such that so explosive, so militarized space that I mean, one little drop can create havoc, and this is creating havoc. And the whole security establishment is just watching, saying that this is not a national security issue, but this is a human security issue. And if you don't take care of the human security, national security will
Well,
blow up one day or the other.
It's no meaning actually. It's absolutely meaningless.
Manipur
National
is
security.
in that way sitting in a ticking time bomb. If you don't address this properly, I think the issue is getting deeper and deeper, and it will be a stage which will be completely out of hand, which will be a tragedy for the people of Manipur, but it will equally be a tragedy for the whole country as such. Yeah.
Now, I do not know how to thank you for actually sparing time for this interview, because whatever you say throughout the interview, I think it's the people at large, they should actually carefully listen to it and think about it. Equally, the state, the greater implications are on the state. I hope so. The state should also respond to it, listen to it. Maybe then only we can get some solution, and particularly for building a civil society forum for the Northeast, whatever you have said, based on values, maybe we can, you see, come up with a forum for the which can take care of the, it's a common destiny of the entire Northeast. Once again, thanking you very much for participating in this discussion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.